Hi, welcome to part 2 of Unanswered Questions with Toby and Ketin. So this is questions that I haven't been able to get around to answering on the digital busking sessions, so we thought we'd just do these little posts to kind of hopefully sort of answer your questions that you wanted to be answered. Okay, shoot.
David Howland, jam or marmalade on toast?
Oh, jam. Although I do love marmalade.
Your dad makes some good jam.
My dad does make great jam.
Any reason the band never played Monsters of Rock as it was then known?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. We just weren't in that bracket. Weirdly, Little Angels were always regarded, I think, at the time as more of a pop band than we were a rock band. We would dispute that, but we never got asked to do that. And so we ended up playing Milton Keynes Bowl, obviously with ZZ Top and Bryan Adams, and then with Bon Jovi. And I think by the time we played Bon Jovi, we were very much regarded as a rock band. I think we obviously always were, but it's just how the perception of it was, certainly through the magazines, even though we were in Kerrang all the time. We were also in a lot of the sort of teeny mags as well. So we never got asked.
Okay, this is a lot of Little Angels questions because this is from the week.
It's all good.
Of Young Gods.
No problem. Okay. I've got plenty of beer.
Whilst recording Jam, was there any indication that things were starting to go wrong? This is what's and all questions.
Ooh, I don't think so at that particular point. There was minor things that had happened, which I'm going to keep relatively private until my book. But we were on that treadmill of making records for a major label, for a band that had been semi-successful but had started to break, and we were breaking in the UK and mainland Europe. So it was a lot of pressure. I think if there was any kind of breaking, any strains, it was more on the pressure to make the next record and make that record the one that was going to take us really further than anything else, sort of thing.
Richie Byrne asks, when Jam got to #1, was there a worry that you could never top that, or were you in the mindset that this was just the beginning?
It was an extraordinary experience. We worked really hard on it, and the record label did work really hard on it. There was guys in the marketing team that we became really, really good friends with, and they were brilliant. They loved the band, and it was a huge, mass effort from everyone to take the record up as far as it actually did, and we achieved it, and it's an extraordinary thing. I don't think we thought beyond the end of that really, and then of course the cracks started to appear, and the rest is history, as they say.
Nigel Coppenhall asks, why was the Albert Hall gig never filmed?
Yeah, no, that was real difficult.
It's a mystery, isn't it?
It's a bit of a mystery. Wow. I think it was. We did talk about. I remember there was conversations, but because we were at the end of the band's life, and there was a lot of argy-bargy going on, and it was kind of difficult and stuff. I don't think there was certainly no appetite from Polydor to film it, so it would have come down to us to have found the money to film it. It's a huge venue, it would have taken an awful lot of infrastructure and a big team to go and film it properly and all this. So I think we kind of just got to the point where we were a bit exhausted by the situation, and it just was one thing that got missed, that we couldn't do. I really regret that, actually.
So Watson, 2 parts, if I may. Why do you think Jam was such a success? Did you change anything in the writing process compared to the previous albums?
I never specifically looked for a way of writing differently. I never stopped writing the way that I write. And obviously, because I've got the lion's share of the writing really in lots of ways, it was often directed by me. But I did write a lot of stuff with Jim, and quite a bit with Bruce on that record, but I also wrote with some other co-writers, Cliff Wade being a good mate of mine who wrote on that. So I think it was business as usual, but I was personally aware of the need to broaden its barriers a little bit, and push the barriers aside really, and try and allow the songs that we were making to give them the best chance they could to get on the radio, because it was all about the radio back then, it really was, and we needed to get to advance that, and it absolutely did that job. You think about it, Too Much Too Young and Womankind specifically were all over Radio 1 at the time, and that's what really broke the record in lots of ways.
Fiona asks, do you prefer playing big venues or smaller venues when you can get closer to the crowd?
Well, it's all dependent on the size of the band. I mean, with Wayward Sons, we're still in the clubs and probably will be for a little while, even though I think on the headline tour, when it eventually arrives, we will be into slightly bigger venues. But that's because that's the band, every band wants to play bigger stages because you get the luxury of space and you get the more lights and the stages are bigger and people get a better vantage point. You can do more production. It becomes more of a show. That's what we all do it for. So I think it's not a case of preferring. I think it's just a case of that you like it when it's happening to you. I love clubs, but because they're sweaty and it's in their face and all the rest of it, and it's got all great things. But really, my favourite area to perform in is the British theatre touring scene, which is incredible. It never gets any better than that for me. Arenas, they're great for other reasons, but really the theatre touring is the best it is.
Ian Briggs asks, lots of the tours and concerts and gigs were filmed, and do you know how we can but they were never released, so how can we get to view them, and do you have any available? And what were your favourite moments on the tour? Because we've all loved seeing the pictures of you with Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that Mark Plunkett's got a lot of footage that he took privately of the Bon Jovi tours and the Van Halen tours. But we took out crews every now and again, and we did film, the Town and Country Club, and we filmed Hammersmith, and we filmed, the Leeds Town and Country Club as well. And we did various professional recordings over the time, but at that particular point in history, it was a huge logistical setup. You had to have what was like a mobile recording studio sat outside the back of the venue. The cameras were bigger and bulkier. You had to have lots of people involved, and it cost a fortune. So it was often a case of why are we doing this, what we're doing it for. But there was a lot and of course people didn't have phones and didn't have small cameras to film things at the time. So, there's not a lot of footage.
But there is stuff we haven't even seen.
Yeah, the stuff that we haven't even seen.
So much
because
behind the scenes.
Mainly because it was filmed, Mark filmed a lot of the Bon Jovi stuff privately for stuff that we were going to do later on. And I don't think we used it all. It's that sort of thing.
Right, move on.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be 30 seconds per
I
question.
can't do 30 seconds.
Lee Williams, do you feel like the seminal band you are for so many people? For me and my friends, you literally are the soundtrack to our youth. And now when I play Little Angels, I'm now 42, it just instantly transports me back to all the good times with our little crew. Do you know this? How important you are to so many people? Well,
I do now. I mean, it's been incredibly humbling to hear all these kinds of comments over the years. I think we knew that we had an incredibly loyal fan base. I can always remember my mum saying to me that when she used to come to the gigs, specifically, I remember her saying to me once after we played Newcastle City Hall, because that was close to Scarborough, closest to Scarborough, my mum and dad came up. She said, the thing about you lads is that you are a band for the people. You're for anyone who wants to come and see this band. It's not about being cool and being belonging to a movement. Anyone could like your band. And that was what I remember thinking, yeah, that's totally true, that is, So we knew that we had a very infectious sensibility, and that connected to people. But it really wasn't until after I started getting these kinds of messages and the internet exploded that people have said this is a very, very common thing that people say to me, and it's amazing. I genuinely am blown away when I hear things like that. So it's incredible. That's what we do it for. That's why I write songs. That's why bands exist, is because you want to change people's lives in a positive way. And if I've done that, and if we've done that as a collective, I literally, that's the happiest thing I can hear. Thank you for that.
Some songwriting questions now. Matt Gibbs says, is Backdoor Man a euphemism?
No, it's an old. It comes from an old blues sort of thing from way back in the day. And me and Bruce went over to work with Jim Vallance, who co-wrote that song with us, and he's a Canadian songwriter, wrote with Bryan Adams and Aerosmith and all that. And we just got talking. And I can remember having a conversation about sort of the blues, and Bruce was massively into the blues. And it's just one of those kind of things that the Backdoor Man was the guy, the guy cheating on his wife, or the wife cheating on the husband, and the guy leaving through the back door. So that's what it was all about. It's just an old
next
blues thing,
2 questions about Don't Confuse Sex with Love.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Lucas says, what other than that song, what in your opinion is the sexiest song you've ever written?
I I don't write. I'm rubbish at sexy.
And Alison Davison asks again, what is this Don't Confuse Sex with Love about, and why did you write it?
Well, it was. I think it was a fun tune. We'd been listening to Pump and Permanent Vacation. Specifically, Pump had been a massive influence on us, and just because it was such a brash and exciting and fun and sexy record, and I think it was kind of like our reaction to that. And also, I can remember that me and you, we bought the Diamonds and Pearls album by Prince, and there's 2 or 3 tunes on that use this kind of like sort of quasi-sexual innuendo to sort of support the idea. I think it was that track, is it Cream? Anyway, it was, and I just thought it was fun. There wasn't anything heavy about it at all. It was more just kind of an exploration of the idea of that, really.
Pete Evans actually asked who does the sexy voice on the intro.
Do you know? I don't know. I think that came from Jim. It may well have been. I don't know. It might have been. I honestly genuinely don't know. I seem to remember it was something to do with Jim. I think because I was coming in and out of the studio at the time, and I wrote that tune and brought it to the band and all the rest of it. Then I disappeared after we'd done the drum tracks. I went off and did whatever, and they were carrying on with the guitar parts. And I came back, and that was all put together. So don't know. Got to be honest.
Sharon Gray asks, "Do you help me with the housework?"
Of course I do. I'm better at it than she is.
It's true.
I am better. I love housework only because I tell you, I'm that.
He lives in a house full of women. Even
Exactly.
the dog and the cat are female, and you are.
And they're the messiest gits on the planet.
He's the tidiest of all of us.
Honestly, there's stuff everywhere all the time. All I do is pick stuff up.
Duncan asks, "What's the story of how, why, and when the Big Bad Horns became involved with the Little Angels?"
Oh, that's a great one. Well, we were big friends and became really big friends with a band called Zoot and the Roots, which was essentially Grant Kirkhope and Frank Misen, Uncle Bastard, who sadly has passed away a couple of weeks ago. They had Snake Davis playing saxophone for them at the time, but of course we had the mighty Dave Kemp. It was kind of a natural thing. We asked Dave. I seem to remember we'd asked Dave if he'd. No, actually, it wasn't Dave, was it? I think we asked Grant, who was the trumpet player, who was a friend of ours. He was a guitar player in a heavy metal band called Maniacs as well. And we were doing Radically Lover, re-recording Radically Lover, and we'd all loved the way that Aerosmith had used horns on Permanent Vacation and Dude Looks Like a Lady, and it was a huge influence on us. And so our manager at the time said, "Oh, well, I know some horn players," type of thing. Why don't we give it a go? And because we were reinventing Radically Lover, and we wanted to do something different, and our manager suggested trying the guys out, and it worked out absolutely amazing. And then we tried it. Then they came on the road with us, and we did a horn arrangement. I remember one of my favourite.
More than 30 seconds.
One of my favourite things that the horn section, Big Bad Horns, ever did was a horn arrangement for a live version of Sex in Cars, which was absolutely brilliant. It had an odd time signature to it, and I'm sure if Grant's watching this, he can tell you all about that. So and it just stuck. We just loved the sound of it. They were great fun to be around, and it gave us something different. It was all of a sudden, it's like it opened up this different world for us, and it separated us from the pack.
Craig Wilson, any plans for a reunion of the reunion?
Well, I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes. We don't really know at the moment. We've had conversations about various things. For the Little Angels, it's really important to all of us that we do things in the right way. We did leave the band on top. We left with the Albert Hall with a #1 album, and even though it was a tragedy, it still has a fantastic legacy because we didn't just disappear and spiral downwards into nothing, etc. So I think it's all very important to us that we do things right at the right time.
What was it like appearing on Top of the Pops? Asks Vicky Pring.
Well, brilliant. I mean, we grew up with Top of the Pops, didn't we? All of us. I mean, Thursday nights in the British household for a long time for pop music was the only outlet for any form of music, and I can remember just shouting at the TV, "Why isn't there any more rock on this programme?" and all that. So when we got a chance to play it, I mean, it was amazing. I think the first time we ever did it was She's a Little Angel. And I think we ended up doing Top of the Pops about, I think it was 12 times or something like that. It was ridiculous. And we went from TV Centre to Elstree, the film studios, because they moved it to there. And we loved it, and that's where I met Rick Blackstill, actually, who's the guy who's now producing my, who's the head of Planet Rock. So, what comes around goes around,
Paul Pachurek.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd never know how to pronounce your name. Take yourself back to the Jammed On Demand tour, and then fast forward to the last time you were on stage with Wayward Sons. Is the buzz still the same?
Oh, totally. It doesn't change. I mean, it gets a bit harder for things like, just in recent years, I've had a bout of vocal problems, which I don't know. I actually think it was, I don't know, but I mean, I traced it back to sort of like some kind of viral problem, and it lasted for quite a while. So that was a struggle. When I'm on my best and I can't sing in the way I want to sing, that's difficult. And I never used to have those problems. In the middle period of Little Angels, between, say, Young Gods through to the end of Jam, I never really had vocal problems. It was I kind of got on top of it because we were playing all the time, all over the world, and that was good. But the buzz doesn't change. Every time I go on stage, I still feel slightly nervous as I'm about to enter the stage. And as soon as I get on the stage, all those nerves go. And it felt like that the first time I ever did a gig.
Okay, we're nearly at the end of this lot. Brian Reese asked, what was your favourite part of the film TV segment of your career that you took part in, and would you do it again?
I don't really get that question.
Well, when you worked in film and TV.
Oh, sorry.
What was your favourite thing?
Oh, I think my favourite thing was the very first thing we did, which was Gladiator, and that was when I was just an absolute lowly extra. I'd never been on set before, apart from on making videos for Little Angels, so I didn't know the score. I knew what would happen, and I knew what a first assistant director was, and I had a sense of what it was going to be about. But it was just so exciting because it was Ridley Scott, probably next to Steven Spielberg, my favourite film director of all time, and it was. And I met him, and it was that was incredible. And that film was so huge, and it was massive sets, and it was a brilliant. But I think the Band of Brothers was exciting. It was a laborious, long job. Where it was more about standing around than anything else, but it was a brilliant thing to experience over such a long period of time. I met a lot of people, made a lot of friends, and yes, I would do it again. I'm actually writing for film now, and music, and I'm also doing some creative writing, which potentially, hopefully, will turn into some filmmaking stuff. So I'm thinking that's a big part of my future, actually.
Okay, just a couple more. Dave Lloyd asks, this is your chance for some gratuitous name dropping, because you said that you befriended JBJ when you toured back in '93.
I did. Yeah.
Who would you say was the most approachable Bandstroke performers and the wildest, other than Steel Panther?
Well, Steel Panther weren't wild. I mean, their whole thing's an act, as we know. And they were all lovely, lovely people. They were really gentle and kind guys off stage, and were very, 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 very approachable. In fact, I would say that that Panther tour ranks in the top 3 of my favourite tours I've ever done, because they were just so good to us. I think it's weird, the more successful a band becomes and the more successful an artist becomes, quite often the easier they are to be around, because they've got nothing to prove. Bryan Adams was like that. Bryan was the most down-to-earth guy you could possibly meet. He was really generous to me, and to us all, but I got to know him really well. He was a good friend of mine, and he had no airs and graces, and yet he was, at the time, probably the biggest star on the planet.
But are you still in touch with them? No.
I'm not still in touch with Bryan, no. These things, you tend to be friends with people for the period of time you're working with them. Of course, their lives are incredibly complicated. But I know that, if I got to see Bryan again, we would be mates again. It's that sort of thing, Same with Bon Jovi, I guess. John was a fantastic guy, but it was in a bubble. We were in a short period of time. He loved the band, then we split up. So it was nowhere to go from that. I'm good mates with Joe Elliott. I've become good friends with Joe, and Joe's a great guy. You couldn't meet a nicer, kinder, more down to earth bloke with a total, really firm head on his shoulders. It's just that, what? At the end of the day, we're all just people. That's it.
Okay, last one. Steve Remus says, "Where the hell can we get Jam on film on DVD?"
Well, I think it was
Did
produced.
Nigel redo it or something?
I don't know. I thought it.
Contact Nigel Crooks.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got it on DVD here.
But you're not having ours.
Yeah, but I seem to. I'm sure it must have been done as short. It must have been a short.
I think Nigel did.
Maybe Nigel did. Maybe not. I don't know. But I mean, that you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea, would it? You know, to kind of gather all this stuff together and put it onto some kind of format. I mean, the trouble with DVDs is that they're sort of going way out of fashion now, as much as I love them. You know.
Right, that's your luck for today.
Thank you. See you soon.